Today I'm showing you exactly how to build these Gothic medieval stables in ARK Survival Ascended using mostly the Gothic Craft custom cosmetic skins as well as a little bit of the castle craft skins, but you can definitely change those out for any different wood textures just to give us a little bit of variety for our build. This build, of course, offers some stables for your faithful creatures so you can keep them safe in between your adventures or do a little bit of breeding, but can also serve you quite well as an early game base because you have a decent amount of space available where you could do all of your crafting and keep your things safe and make yourself a cozy bedroom. Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. As always, of course, if you enjoy seeing these types of build tutorials and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all the support. And of course, feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd really like to see down in the comments below. Of course, we'll get started with the foundation. And for these stables, that's going to be a 4 wide foundation right here. And we actually want to add 2 in the middle here at the very end for a little bit of an side addition. Then the stables themselves are going to be 8 long, so just like this, and then we can of course bring this out until it's 4 again and connect this back up to where we started. So that's the shape for the stables themselves. Of course, we can fill in the entirety of this shape, and then right next to it we can start with our main building. Here at the back of the stables we want to bring this out so we can bring it across by 4 in total. Then this build is going to be 5 long, so it's going to meet back up with the stables itself, and of course it means we can fill that in all the way through. Then we want to add a little bit of an extra addition here at the front. We want to take out a quarter foundation just for temporary sakes, just to get a different snap point. We then want to have a full foundation here. We want to make this 3 wide and 4 long, and then we can fill that entirety in, so an extra additional shape there, and we can take out that quarter foundation. So that is the shape that we'll need for our building. So it's a relatively easy shape. You know, you've got your 8x4 for the stables, your 4x5 for the main building, and then your 3x4 for the little side addition, as well as, of course, the little 2x1 at the very left. But yeah, relatively easy floor plan to get us started. So we'll actually start with this little side building. So the 3x4 over here. To make it easier, we'll skin this with the castle skins to get the floor so that we know exactly what we're working with. And then we want to raise up these corners by adding pillars that are too high. If you want to, of course, you can also bring them all the way down below to the ground. And we can actually use the courtyard stone skins on the bottom 2 of this layer just to get that nice stone look. And then we can use the village skins on the top layer to get the nice wooden beams, or pillars in this case, to get a little bit of structure for this part of the building. We can then take out all walls. We want to just bring them all the way across the bottom of this part of the building, so all the way round, and then we can take out our courtyard stone skins again and just go all the way round the building. Change these to these beautiful stone texture walls just to get the building started. Then we want to have a full wall right here in the middle, and over here on the side we want to have 2 in the corners, so just like this. Then we can bring out our windows. We can add them to the sides of all of these, and of course making sure they're facing the right way, so that already gives a little bit more structure to this build. Taking out our doors and windows, we can add in the windows all the way round too. And we can take out our village skins again, and we can start changing the skins of all of these walls and windows so that we can get the nice village look on them. And we want to change the variants. Now, normally, of course, you do interact and you go change the variants to the ones that you want. I always use the variant cycle tool because it saves me some time, and I actually want this one with the diagonal line in there, and then I want to flip this one around so it all faces the middle. For these windows, I want to go for this version, and I want to change those to glass so that we have some nice big windows out there. So we're going to do the same thing over here at the front. get those windows in, and we can do the same thing over here on the sides, and of course getting these right walls in here. Flip that around, and then this one we can just create these stripes for a nice look. Then we can take out all quarter ceilings, and we can go all the way here along the edge, and we can of course do the exact same thing here on the other side of the building, just like this. And then we want to update these skins so they look like nice wood textures. Same thing on the other side. There we go. And with that, we've basically provided ourselves with an extra snap points to create a nice roof for this part of the build. We can take out our quarter walls here. We want to add 2 of them right here, and we can add another 2 right there next to it. We can take out our slope walls here, and we can of course add the shape of the roof. There we go. And we can add in a window right there in the middle. We can of course also add in the actual window itself so that we have that nice shape going. Then we want to add a full beam here in the middle. We can add a full beam here to the side underneath these slope walls, and then some half beams in between. We then want to take out the village set first and change almost everything to the village skins except for the beam here in the middle. We can change of course a few of these variants. So first of all, we want to change this window. I like this one quite a bit, and then we want to add a little bit of a pattern in by changing those ones. We can change the top one to have this little curve and the side ones to just have the lines. And then finally we want to use the deco skin here on this beam, and we want to change these variants until we get this one, just to add a little bit more depth here to the side of your building. And if you really want to, you can of course add a layer of ceilings going all the way across on this layer, add a little staircase up there so you can reach it. If you maybe want to turn it into a little bedroom or, you know, something like that, you have a little bit of space in this room to play around with. We, however, are going to play around with the roofs for this part. So we want to raise up the roofs just like this, bring it all the way over to the front. And of course, do the same thing here on the other side of the building, just like so. And then of course here along the edge, we can add in our quarter pieces just to get a bit of an overhang on the very front of our building, which will look a lot nicer. Then we can take out our railings, and we want to add the railings here along the top edge of the building, the half railing at the very end. There we go. And then of course we can change the skins for this. So then we can take out our village skins again, and we can change all of these roof pieces to these nice green roofs with some really nice textures. You can actually change these if you go into the options. You can change the material, because right now you have the copper version, but you can also turn them into slate if you prefer that look. So you can definitely play around with that, especially if you're building a bigger town. And then we can have the trim skins here on the very top of the roof. And once again, we want to change those variants until we get these nice railings at the top of our roof for that proper Gothic feeling. So we want to just change all of these variants. There we go. And then of course, finally, this one we want to change to the variant that has this little bigger one that sticks out to the front a little bit. And then we have already a pretty nice looking little cabin here that will serve as well as an addition to the rest of the build. And in survival, this is great because, well, if you just close up the other side for now, it means that you have a little base of operations whilst you work on the rest of your build. Okay, then it's time to start on the actual stables themselves. We want to take out our gateways, and we can actually add 4 of them right next to each other here so that we can have the entrances to our stables. We will change these to be those lovely village skins, and then the actual inside here we can change to the courtyard stone skins. I quite like the look of those here, so we want to change the entirety of the stable sections to these skins just to set them apart a little bit more. And there we go. And now of course we have the whole stables to build. We'll start here over at the very edge here. We want to take out all pillars. We can add a pillar on the corners. We can of course connect it back to in the ground. we can have 2 walls here with the windows. And then here on the side, we just want to have our normal walls. And then on top, we can add a shallow slope wall so that we can have our nice shape going into the building. We can take out our ramps here to add a little roof. And of course, we want to add a little edge around it with our quarter pieces so it looks a little bit nicer. So we want to go all the way around. And then we want to add in our actual windows or doors here in the windows so that we have the whole build complete. We can actually take out the village set first here for these pillars to bring in a little bit of that darker wood. We can also do that for the roof, but I would actually keep it this wood texture just for a nice bit of contrast. And then I've actually used the settler tear from the Castle Craft custom cosmetic for these walls. You can blend these in quite nicely. If you don't have that, you could also use the frontier skins instead, or another cosmetic with some nice wood textures. And yeah, we could just change these variants until we have some nice windows that are nice looking. You've got a bunch of options here, by the way, so you can kind of choose what you like the most. As you can see, there's a ton of options for these windows, but I think the default one with these nice patterns in them work very well for this little addition to the side of our stables. Then to continue here on this side, we can actually add in a pillar. We want to make that 4 high. We can do the same thing here on the opposite side. And of course, we want to connect these all the way onto the ground. We can then take out our walls, fill them up all the way until almost the top, not all the way at the top, and basically go around the side here. We then also want to take out our beams and have a beam going across from one end to the other. So this is on the top layer of the gates basically. And then with the quarter walls, we want to fill in this remaining little gap so that we have this wall looking completed. We want to take out our village stairs again, and we want to change these pillars and these beams to the nice dark wood. There we go. And then the rest of the wall, once again, I'm going to use these settler tear skins from Castle Craft because I think they blend in quite nicely. But as I said, you can use the frontier skins. You can use a bunch of different wooden textures. I like to go for the horizontal planks here at the bottom just to set them apart a little bit between the different layers. As for the top part of this building, first of all, we want to take out our pillars again. We want to add 2 of them right over here. We can add a full wall in the corners there before we take out our shallow slope walls again, and we can go up with a shape like this to meet each other in the middle to give a little bit more shape to the rest of the building. We want to take out our railings as well, add them here underneath as well as along this edge just to give a little bit more detail to this side. Then we can take out our village stair skins again, and we can skin all of these walls as well as the pillars as well as the railings so that we have a very nice looking entrance here. We can change these to these variants. We can flip this one around, and then we have a very nice looking side of the building. Then we'll focus here on the back of the building. We can actually add in our pillars here. We want to go 4 high and of course connect them into the ground wherever possible and needed. So we can do that for all of these sections, basically mirroring the other side with the gates. And then we also want to add in a beam at this height. So basically continuing the beam that we had on the other side, just to give a little bit more shape here to the back wall of the building. We can change these all to the village skins so that we get this nice dark log beams. And of course, don't forget about these pillars all the way at the bottom too. So we want to make sure that we change all of these into these beautiful wooden textures. Then to get started with, we want to add a layer all the way across the bottom here of this part of the building. We can change these to the settler skins once again, or whatever wooden skin you've been using for this. And we want to change, in this case, I'm going to change them to the horizontal ones first. Then I want to take out my quarter stone walls or whatever walls you want to use, and we want to add them to all of these sides of this wall so that we have a nice wall centered bit in the middle. We can take out our walls. First of all, we can add a wall going all the way across the top section here of this wall, just to make sure that we have that in place. And then we can add in our windows right there in the middle, so they're neatly lined out. We can take out our windows themselves and fill these all in. And then once again, we can change it all to the settler skins, so that we've got this whole wall completed. There we go. All the way from one side to another. And yeah, then we basically can add in our windows. I like to go for these big ones with these Gothic Craft skins. I think these are very nice, but as I said, there's a bunch of variants, so if you want to go for a different one, that is of course totally up to you, and there's a lot of options to choose and pick from, so you can definitely always find something that you'll like. And there we go. Then we have all of these nice windows at the back, so that there's some light coming in to your stables. We then want to take out our quarter walls again. We can add them here for each of these sections too, so that we'll have some nice centered walls afterwards. So we want to have all of these little quarter pieces. We can then take out our windows again, and we can be sure to snap them right here in the middle of all of these. We can take out our windows, add them right there in the middle for each of these sections. And then we can take out our village skins and skin this top layer from one side to the other, so that we get all of our nice windows in place. And then we also want to change the variants here, so we want to go for these bigger windows at the top too, so we can change all of those to the right variant from one side to the other. And then it's time to take a look at the front, because of course we're still missing out the top layer over here. First, what we want to do is basically bring across this beam from one side all the way to the end here, and then we can also add in these pillars in between, basically at the same intervals between these gates, so that we have the same structure going on. We can change those of course to the village skins as well, and then we basically have the same kind of structure as on the other side. We want to start of course by adding in these quarter walls everywhere, so that we can line up these windows with the middle of our sections basically. And there we go. We can add them in to each and every one of these sections, and then we can add in the windows themselves, and of course change it all to these village skins, so that we get that nice look going all the way across the front of the build too. So yeah, here again we can change the variants. You can of course pick and choose which variants, which windows you prefer to have. I just personally really liked these ones. Then we want to use our slope walls here in the middle two sections to add these right there, just to give a little bit more detail there. And we actually want to do the same thing here at the back of the building as well, so basically repeating that same process. And that is all of the walls on the outside at least completed. Okay, and then we want to actually take out our walls, and we can add these middle sections between the stables themselves. So from every pillar to every gate, basically we want to add these in, except for the final one of course, because that's where we're going to have the main building, so we don't need to do that just yet. We can change these to the settler skins, or whatever wood skin you've been using for most of these walls, and in my case I'm going to change them to the horizontal variant, just because they match up with the back of the building. Then we can take out our railings and actually add another layer here on top of these walls, just for a tiny extra bit of detail. We can use the village skins on those, so that we got this nice pattern going across the top from one side to the next. Then we can actually take out our beams, and then here from the middle we actually want to bring it out, and here above the wall we want to go over to both sides. We want to repeat that process for each one of these sections, and this will just add in a little bit of additional detail. Of course you could also add in a floor here if you really want to use this space, but otherwise it's just nice to have a few extra details in your stables to make them look even nicer. So we're Gonna change all of these to the village skins to get those nice beams looking the best way possible. And then we actually want to take out our sloped walls. We can actually add them here as basically supports coming down from the beams, just to give even more details and even more shape to this whole stables build. So yeah, we just want to bring these all down, except for of course at the very end. And then once again, I'm going to use the settler skin for this from Castlecraft, but you can also use the settler skin from CKF if you want to. And then we want to change the variants until we get these scaffolding pieces, which will really help sell the look of these being like supportive beams. And it is also just a nice way to make sure that these mixes of the different woods kind of come back in a lot of the sections of this build, which I personally quite like. And you can see this really already changes the whole look of this place and makes it feel much more supported and much more detailed. And then it's time to get started on the actual roof of this place. So of course we want to take out our ramps. We want to raise them up all the way like so. We can of course connect them from the other side, and then we can also bring these across the top layer. We can leave out the bottom layers there, and of course the final bit we can fill in all the way again. There we go. Then we can take out our ramp corners and we can add these nice details around these extra walls that we've made. So we'll do the exact same thing of course at the opposite side here, making sure that we fill all of this in. Then we can take out these quarter ramps. We want to add them of course here along the side for some additional detail, as well as here at the end, so that we have a little bit of an overhang. We can also add them along these edges so that those are a little bit more interesting to look at. There we go. And of course it repeats itself here on the opposite side. So once again we can add in all of these pieces just to make sure that this looks the nicest way possible. There we go, just following along all the way. And in this case we're actually using the castle skins for these, just to get a little bit of a different look for each section of the different roofs. And of course to start with, we just want to make sure that we skin all of these from one side to the next. And then of course the opposite side of the building, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're just going to skin all of these pieces all the way to the end. And there we go. Then we can also take out our railings. Of course, we want to add these railings all the way across the top layer here, all the way to the very end. And then we want to add one right here, right there, and on this side, of course. And then at the very end, we can use our half railings to add in these missing pieces. There we go. So that all of these railings are in the right place. And if you really wanted to, what you could of course do is also make sure that these railings from the end meet up with the middle. But that's up to you whether or not you want to actually do that. Those railings we of course want to skin with the trims, which is going to make them look a little bit silly for now, but as soon as we change to the right variant, it's all going to be perfect. So for now we'll change all of these. There we go. And then we have a bunch of skins to change. So first of all, for these railings we want to go to the right variant here, and this one we want to make sure that it has the spike sticking out at the end. So we want to now do this for all of these different railings. So it's going to take us a little bit, but it's definitely going to be worth it to get those nice Gothic looks. And in this case we'll need to flip the end piece so that it actually sticks out there. You can do the same thing over here. Get those railings looking nice. And again, we'll flip that around. And then the top bit, of course. Quite a bit of railings to change to get the right looks here for all of these different sections. There we go. Slowly but surely we'll get there. It's a bit tedious sometimes with skins with a little variance, but on the other side, it's quite nice to have a lot of variance, of course, because it gives you a lot of freedom to create exactly what you want to. There we go. We want to change this. And now, of course, we still need to change the actual skins of the roof so that we get the roof looking the nicest it can be. So we just want to go along and make sure that we get the right variance here for all of these little ramps. There we go. Just one by one until we get that roof looking complete. So yeah, this is going to take you a little bit, especially, I mean, I'm still using the variant tool, which speeds it up a little bit. Without it, it goes a little bit slower, although what you can also do, but you have to make sure that you don't have any other pieces that are the same. You can also go into the skins and then copy to nearby. The only danger, of course, is, for example, if we had anything connected or snapped to this, which also uses this skin on ramps, then it might, well, it might mess it up. But yeah, you could, of course, do this. You have options, so you can do very small area, for example, which should help you out a little bit. You'll see it copying it over to certain skins. But again, you want to be careful with this, especially if you have a bunch of other things snapped to the same thing. But it will definitely help to speed things up a little bit. And if you're building this by itself, so not connected to any other builds, you'll probably be good to go. So yeah, you'll see that helps a little bit, but we'll still need to fix some of these things ourselves, which is fine, of course. We don't mind too much. And it does help us save a bunch of time for sure. Once we've done all that, the roof should look like this. So it's nice, a little bit of contrast with the other part of the building that we have already done. What we also want to do is here in the front, we want to make sure to either add in some ramps or some stairs along the front so that you can still get up and onto the stables. So we want to make sure that we skin these again. I'm using the courtyard stone skins for those staircases so that you can actually, well, enter the stables themselves. And if you want to be able to close off the stables, you can, of course, add in these stables doors so that you can, well, protect your creatures by closing up whenever you need it. And there we go. We have the stables ready. It's time to start focusing here on the main build itself. Okay, we want to start adding our pillars here. We want to add 4 of them right to that corner. We want to add another 4 right over here. Another 4 and another 4 right there. And of course, wherever we can, we want to make sure to connect these onto the ground. There we go. Even there we can manage to do it. We want to change all of these pillars to the castle skins. There we go. And we can actually also change the entire floor of this bit to the castle skins, because that will look a lot nicer and more vanilla structures. And of course, well, the remaining pillars, we're gonna change the look of those so they all fit into our beautiful castle look. Then we can take out our stone walls. We want to make sure that it is flipped inside out, basically, and we can go around the top layer for all of these different walls. There we go. So we want to add them everywhere. And then we actually want to add another wall on top of that, the same orientation too. It will all make sense in a little bit why we're doing it like this. But that's how we want to start it all. Then we can fill in this wall. It's quite easy. We can just have 3 normal walls here. Again, we can flip them the right way around now. We can have this one open and the rest of the wall we can fill in completely. For this, we want to add in a little doorway. Then over here, we can also start filling in this wall all the way from one side, oops, to the other. And over here, we want to make sure that we add the door to the middle. So we'll have some quarter walls first, and then we can have the door right there, neatly lined up with the middle of the building. Then we can take out our stone gateways again. We can add one there, one right there in the corner, and one right here in the middle. Then we can take out walls, have them just like this along the outside, and here in the middle too. Then of course we want to add in the actual gates to all of these sections. Then we can take out our castle skins. We can skin all of these walls to get the appropriate look. We'll do that for all of these walls that we've just added into the build, all the way round from one side to the other, of course. There we go. Also over here on this side, make sure to get them all changed to the right texture. We can then of course add in the doors themselves. So we want to add in those two doors. We want to change the looks of them. And if you want, you can also change the variants. You can go for these, but there's also some nice arches if you prefer those looks. So yeah, you can definitely play around with whatever door or skin you like the most. Then we actually want to go to the outside because it's a little bit easier. We want to change these variants just once, and we actually want to change the variants up there twice so that we get these nice trims that will meet up with each other. So we want to do this on all the different sides, of course. So we'll add these in. There we go. And just like that. And of course, this last side is going to be the hardest one, but we know we want to change these ones. And we want to change these twice. There we go. And that should bring all of these trims into the right place. Here over on this side, we want to use the trim skin actually on the gates, as well as of course the one here at the very back. And then we want to change the variant of the gate frame until it fits in perfectly with the rest of the wall and just blends in very nicely. We want to do this for all of these different gates all around the stables. There we go. Some beautiful and big windows around the sides of this building. And we can also take out our stairs over here. We can add two of them just like this. Add in a ceiling, and then we can continue with our stairs. Two more. There we go. And then of course another one right over here, and one more staircase to go all the way up. We then want to take out our railings, add them here alongside the edge of the staircase, and we can take out our village tier again, and be sure to change all of these to some nice wood textures just to bring in a little bit of color here on the inside, and of course making sure that you can easily get up to the top layer of the building. Yeah, we can also start working on that top layer a little bit. Take out our ceilings here along the edge, add a layer of ceilings all the way through. We can of course bring these ceilings across the building, and also on this side make sure they stick out by one. There we go. And then of course leave a little gap here for the actual staircase. We can add in the stone railings along the side here as well. We can of course also change the skins here. So we want to just go across for now and change all of these to the village skin so that we get some nice new wooden floors in here. We want to take out our stone walls. We want to flip them around, add a layer around that side, and another layer here around that side. And we can change those to the castle skins once more, all the way across, and then changing the variant to get the trim here on the inside of the building this time. Okay, then it's time to work on the walls here at the top layers. So we want to add some quarter pieces right there and right here on the very corners of the build. We'll do the same thing over here, just adding those pieces in. Then we actually want to add in some windows right next to them on both sides. There we go. And then in the middle we can just have our normal wall again. Same over there. Then we can have another window in the middle above that one. Then to fill in the gaps, we're going to use some more quarter walls along the sides of both of these. Then we can take out the slope walls. We can start to shape up the roof all the way to the top here, just like that. But we also want to have a slope wall here at the bottom to go back into the building to add a little bit more shape to it and get that nice Gothic feeling to it as well. So we want to raise this all the way up to the top again, get the shape in, add the supports underneath. And then here along the edge of the building, what we actually also want to do is add in some additional support. So we want to have a few more of these slope walls all the way at the bottom, just so that it looks a little bit nicer. On the other side, we can't really do the same details, but you can at least add this one right here. The rest is, of course, already interlinked with the roof of the stables themselves. Then we want to take out our trim pieces. We can place them on these slope walls here at the bottom layer, which will turn them into some nice arches that look like they're supporting the rest of the building. And we can also change these skins here at the very top of the roof. We can take out our windows and make sure to add them in everywhere, of course. And we can also take out our railings, and we actually want to add them here on top of these slope walls for all sides, of course, to get the nice little details in. Then we can take out our castle skin, and we can basically skin most of the rest of this wall with it from one side to the other. There we go. That should blend it all in. And then we can use the trim skins here on those railings to get those extra depth in there. We want to do the same thing over here. Skin the remaining ones with the castle skin to get this top of the building looking quite nice too, of course. And then the trim skin on those railings. Then, of course, we want to make sure that we actually add in the details. Now, there's a bunch of options, of course, for all of these different windows, so you can kind of just pick and choose what you like. I kind of like one of these narrow ones, maybe this one, since it has slightly more details in it. And then we just want to have the normal glass, but you also have stained glass if you prefer the look of that. And then we want to have the round one there at the top, and we want to change the variant of this one to the big one here. There we go. We also want to take out our pillars, or half pillars actually, add 4 of them here, so 2 here, 2 there, and change those to the decor skins. There we go. So that is this end of the building pretty much complete. We want to change this to the variant with the little gargoyle, just to have a little bit of extra detail around these sides here. Then, of course, we can also change these skins. So first of all, we'll change all of this glass to look very nice. We'll change this to the round circle, and of course we can change these to those beautiful windows. Change the top here to get those extra details in, and once again adding in all half pillars here at the end and changing them to the decor skin, so you have the roof design complete. And you can see that offers quite a nice looking building with a bunch of different layers with all the different parts of the build. But of course, we still have to finish the roof itself. First of all, we can take out our stone ramps on this side and add them in between, just as a little bit of extra details. And we can skin those with the castle skins to make them blend in. We can't really do that on the other side because we already have the main roof there. Speaking of the roof, we can now take out our roof pieces and basically just fill it in between the lines here. So we just want to fill in these roofs all the way across. And then on the opposite side, of course, we're going to do the exact same thing from one side to the other. And then, of course, at the very top, we want to add in our railings just like this. We want to use the trim skin once again, and then once more we can change these until we get those nice railings at the top of our roof, the nice little spikes going across from one side to the other, because that's the vibe that we want. And then you can kind of pick and choose whether you want to use the castle skin, so the roof will look like that, or you want to use the village skins. Personally, I use the village skin because I quite like those green coppery textures that it gives us. So we want to, of course, change all of the roof to that beautiful green to add in a bit of color, and we can actually add in some additional details by adding in some of these beautiful dormer windows. As you can see, there's a bunch of variants to play around with if you want to, but yeah, I would add at least these four just to get a bit more shape into the roof, a bit more extra details, and you'll end up with this beautiful building. And if you want to add a few extra details here along the front, we can take out our ramps again. We can go all the way across the front here. Then we can take out our quarter pieces and start adding a little extra ledge around them. So this is basically just to make this front a little bit more interesting. Yeah, it's up to you whether you want to add it or not. Now here off to the side, I'm not entirely sure if you could place this one here on official, but if you can, definitely do it. Otherwise, you can leave that out. You won't really notice it too much in that corner there. We can change all of these to the village skins again, and I would keep them as this wood version just to add in a little bit touch of a different color again. There we go. Then of course we also want to add in some pillars. I'd probably go for the thin pillars here, and yeah, you want to add them of course all the way down into the ground so that we have some extra supports for this building. So we can do that all the way from one side to the other. There we go. And of course we can change these with the village skins to give us the proper looks for them too. And if you wanted to add even more detail, what you could do is add some slope walls in between them so that we can add the proper supports for them too. So now we want to use the settler skins again, just as we did on the inside of the stables basically, just to kind of add those extra supports, change them to those scaffolding pieces, and that way, yeah, we just have a little extra addition along the front of our entrance here. It does mean that you probably only want to open the doors inside. Looks a little bit nice, otherwise they might poke through slightly through the front. But yeah, as you can see, it does add just that extra little bit of character into the build. And yeah, there we go. That is it for these stables, the medieval Gothic stables with the Gothic Craft, as well as a little bit of the Castle Craft custom cosmetic skins. Definitely makes for quite a nice little addition to your own little medieval or Gothic town, or as a nice little base to get you going with, because you have the stable so you can keep your tame safe, especially if you close the doors, and you have a decent amount of space available to use as your base for a little bit of storage, crafting, etc. Make yourself a cozy little bedroom, and you could totally live in these stables. Anyway, there we go. That was it for today's video. If you enjoyed, as always, of course, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and let me know down in the comments below which future builds you'd love to see. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.